I do not have photographs or necessary descriptions to do a reconstruction. To do reconstruction, you require a lot of information, which is simply not available in this case. But the Bulletin article with Pat Ruley's description indicate that Ellis Ruley either hit his head on the stone wall, which bordered the pathway up to his house, and or bled over the northern side of the stone wall, perhaps while using it as a support for climbing up the driveway. The Bulletin stated, and I quote, "It appears that Ruley then staggered or stumbled in a circle and down a grade back onto the Hammond Avenue road extension where he collapsed. All along the way, the ground was marked with blood, and midway, the man lost his hat. When police checked Ruley's home, they found a padlock on his front door and nothing to indicate whether or not he had been home before his death." And you can see how there is a sharp left turn in the driveway as the second leg climbs towards the parking lot at the top of the hill. Because Ruley suffered no broken bones or extensive bruising, and he had one laceration on his scalp, his condition is consistent with an accident, a natural death, and hypothermia is considered a natural cause. Most people don't know that, but when they say he died of natural causes, that it's because of the hypothermia. Or alternatively, the result of some sort of homicide in which he might have been in a fight or pushed, and then that tired him out and he couldn't get back to his house. That's been raised because of the issue involving his wallet being found on the ground. It could have also fallen out of his pocket when he was flailing around suffering from hypothermia. But the fact that if his wallet was indeed found and it was indeed empty, it could have indicated foul play. In favor of the accidental manner of death, Ruley had a blood alcohol of 0.14. He had previously some variety of heart trouble. He was 77 years old. That could have interfered with his ability to climb up his own driveway, which, as I mentioned before, had a steep grade. The ground was wet that evening. I can't tell you if there was any ice at 7 p.m. in the evening. And finally, if he wasn't let off near his house, but instead was let off at the bottom of the hill, which is how cabs used to handle it because they didn't want to get stuck on Hammond Avenue Extension. It was a dirt road. They would let people off at the base of the hill and say, this is as far as I go. He could have been pretty tired by the time he reached his driveway. It's 370 feet uphill. So one bad fall, and you could have had the scenario that the original people, the town medical examiner, the coroner, and the pathologist agreed on. It's not out of the question. But I did discover several issues which made this case kind of interesting. I mean, if this was the day after Ellis Ruley's death, you definitely want to reinvestigate. And it all comes to the cab driver. The cab driver claimed he had dropped Ruley off at the top of the hill, had driven all the way up his driveway, and watched him approach his door. That's inconsistent with the padlock being found on the door. I don't think Ellis Ruley ever opened the door to his house and then left later on. The blood splatter is all located from the base of the driveway on the way up the driveway. There's nothing like a lantern found near Ruley's body, and nothing like buckets which indicated he went out for water. There's no real indication why he would have left home. It's more likely that he never reached his home in the first place, and the accounts don't mention a blood trail approaching the well, so going on a trip to get water is not something which appears to have happened. From my research, it appears that cabs would not risk traveling up the driveway of 20 Hammond Avenue. Before it got paved, it was a very difficult driveway to drive up. Ellis would often not even drive during the winter months. He'd leave his car up in a garage on the top of the hill. Andrew Blakely, who was one of his friends, told me that during the 1950s, when he would visit Ellis, he'd leave his car on the side of the road rather than try to attempt the driveway. Richard Johnson, who actually drove that driveway, told me it was a harrowing experience. He picked up Wilhelmina one day and some of the great-granddaughters and took them up to the house. And he said, I'm very surprised they got up that driveway. He didn't realize how rough it was. So thinking that a cab driver would risk getting his vehicle stuck on that driveway on a rainy winter night, kind of doubtful. In addition, another family member told me that there were rocks protruding from the surface of the driveway, and if you didn't know exactly where they were, you'd scrape the heck out of your undercarriage. So I really don't think that the cab driver actually dropped Ellis off at his house that night.